Rain fell in slow, heavy drops as Armin parked his small delivery truck beside the old warehouse buildings. He had been working late again, finishing the last deliveries of the day. Most people avoided this side of town after dark, but Armin did not think much about it. He just wanted to finish his work and go home. The night was quiet, too quiet, and the wind carried a strange sadness with it. He stepped out of his truck, locked the door, and walked toward the storage unit where he needed to leave a parcel. The ground was wet, and the street lights flickered as if they were tired of shining. Armand moved quickly, keeping his head down. He did not like the feeling of being watched, though he knew no one was around. Still, something in the air felt different. Just as he placed the parcel near the door, he heard a faint sound. At first, he froze, thinking it was the wind. He waited. Then it came again, a soft, shaky voice that did not belong to the storm. It was not clear, but it sounded like someone trying to call out but too weak to finish the words. Armin turned slowly. His heart beat faster. He listened carefully. For a moment, everything was silent again. Then he heard it, very soft, almost like a breath. "Please, help." He felt a chill run down his back. The voice was small, almost broken. It came from deeper inside the storage area, behind the old units that were rarely used. Armin took a step forward, then stopped. Maybe he was hearing things. Maybe the stress of work was making him imagine sounds. But something in that whisper felt real. It felt like someone truly needed help. He moved closer. "Is someone there?" he called softly. No answer came. He waited, but the silence returned, heavy and painful. He shook his head and tried to push the worry away. Maybe it was an echo or a stray cat or just the wind. But as he walked back toward his truck, the sound returned even softer now, like someone was losing strength. "Please, someone, hear me." Armin stopped, cold inside. This was no imagination. Someone was out there, someone suffering. He went back toward the voice, feeling his heartbeat grow louder. He reached the row of old storage units. The doors were rusty, and the small lights above them barely worked. Armin walked slowly, listening for any sound that could help him find the source. Then he found it. One unit near the end had a broken outer lock. The door was not fully closed, just slightly open. Armin felt his breath stop in his chest. He pushed it gently. The room inside was dark, but something smelled strange, like dust, cold metal, and fear all mixed together. He hesitated. He was not a brave man, only a simple delivery driver, but he knew one thing. If he walked away tonight, he would never forgive himself. He reached for his phone and tried calling the local authorities. He told them he heard someone calling and that he thought someone might be trapped. But the operator sounded bored and replied it was probably just someone making a prank call or an animal taking shelter. They said they could not send anyone unless there was clear danger. Armin felt helpless. He ended the call and looked back at the dark room. The rain outside grew heavier. The world seemed to be telling him to go home, forget everything, sleep, and let tomorrow take care of itself. But the whisper he heard earlier stuck in his mind. No human voice should sound like that. He stood there for a long moment, fighting with himself. Then he reached for the broken lock. It hung loosely. He pushed the door open a little more and stepped inside. The room was cold and empty except for a few wooden crates and 2 old blankets. The dim street light from outside barely entered the space. Armand pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness. He moved it slowly across the floor, then across the walls. When the light reached the far corner, his breath stopped. A young woman was sitting there, pressed against the wall, her arms wrapped weakly around her knees. She looked thin, pale, exhausted. Her eyes were half open, unfocused, but still alive. Metal chains loosely circled her ankles, not tight enough to hurt, but enough to keep her from walking freely. Her clothes were old and torn, her hair messy, and her skin showed signs of cold and fear. She blinked slowly when the light reached her, then her lips parted. "Please, don't leave," she whispered, her voice so soft it barely reached him. Armin stepped closer, feeling shock, anger, confusion, and sadness all crash inside him at once. He knelt down, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "It's okay. I'm here. What happened?" The girl tried to speak, but her voice broke. He could see that she had been crying for a long time. Finally, after a few seconds, she managed to whisper, "They told me someone would take care of me. Trust them. But they left me here. Days. Maybe more." Her words were shaky and slow, like every sound cost her strength. She looked at Armin with fear mixed with a tiny sparkle of hope, and that hope crushed his heart. How could anyone leave a human being like this? "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Hanaya," she whispered. Armin felt something inside him break. He remembered the first whisper he heard. Now he was looking at the person who spoke it. He knew he needed to act fast. She needed warmth. She needed to be safe. She needed someone who would not run away. He took off his jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, but then relaxed when she realized he meant no harm. Her hands trembled as she held the warm cloth close. "Please," she said again, but this time her voice was even softer, filled with fear that he might leave. "Please, take me away. Don't let me stay here." Armin nodded without hesitation. "I won't leave you. You're safe now." He checked the chains. They were old and light enough to open with a firm pull. After a few tries, he freed her ankles. Hania let out a shaky breath as if she finally tasted freedom. Armin lifted her gently. She was lighter than he expected, as if fear had eaten away her strength. She leaned against him, trusting him with everything she had left. He carried her to his truck, placed her softly in the passenger seat, and covered her with another blanket he kept for emergencies. She watched him with tired eyes, scared but hopeful. He drove straight to the police station, ignoring speed limits, ignoring the rain, ignoring the fear rising inside him. He knew he was doing the right thing. When they arrived, the officers rushed out. They saw Hania's condition and immediately sent her to the hospital in an ambulance. Armin followed behind, heart racing, mind spinning. At the hospital, doctors worked quickly to warm her, check her injuries, and give her fluids. Armin stood outside the door, hands shaking, praying she would be okay. Hours later, a nurse came to him and said Hania was stable. Armin felt relief wash over him like soft rain after a storm. When he stepped into her room, she looked at him with gentle eyes, already a little warmer, a little safer. "You came back," she whispered. Armin sat beside her and nodded. "Of course." Her eyes filled with tears, not of fear this time, but something softer. "You saved me. Please don't disappear now," she said quietly, like speaking from the deepest part of her heart. Armin felt something shift inside him, something he never expected. He gently took her hand, promising without words that he would stay. Hania stayed in the hospital for several days, and Armin visited her every single one of them. Even when he was tired from long work shifts, he would still stop by to check on her, bring fresh fruit, or sit quietly beside her bed so she would not feel alone. She always smiled softly when he entered, as if seeing him eased something heavy inside her. Her eyes were still tired, but they no longer held the same empty fear. The doctor said she was weak, dehydrated, and emotionally shaken, but she would recover with rest and proper care. They encouraged gentle company, so Armin became her safe presence. He never forced her to speak. He just sat, listened, or talked about simple things, like his day, the weather, small jokes, or stories from his childhood. Every time she laughed, even a little, he felt like the world became brighter. One afternoon, a social worker came to talk with Hania. She needed to explain her situation, how she ended up in that dark storage place, and what happened before she whispered for help. Arman waited outside the room, pacing slowly. He wanted to stay with her, but he did not want to make her uncomfortable. He knew she had to speak freely. The meeting took a long time. When Hania finally came out, she looked tired but lighter, as if releasing some of her memories had lifted a weight from her heart. She saw Arman and walked to him with slow steps. Her voice was gentle when she spoke. "They said I will be moved to a safe shelter for some time," she said. "It's a place where women like me can stay until everything is solved." Arman smiled softly. "That's good. You'll be safe there." She nodded, but her fingers held the blanket around her shoulders more tightly, as if she feared losing the warmth. "Can you visit me there too?" she asked quietly. "Only if you want. I don't want to trouble you." "You're not trouble," Arman replied without thinking. "And yes, I'll visit. As many times as you want." Her eyes softened, filled with relief he had not expected. For someone who had been abandoned so many times, his simple promise meant the world. She was discharged 2 days later. Arman drove her to the shelter with slow care, making sure the road felt calm. The shelter was a large, quiet building with kind staff waiting outside. Hania turned to him before going in. "You saved me twice," she whispered. "Once from that place, and once from losing hope." Arman felt a warm ache in his chest. He wanted to say something meaningful, something strong enough to match her words, but everything felt small. So instead, he gently placed his hand over hers and said, "You saved yourself too. You held on." Hania smiled, a soft smile that showed strength beneath her gentle nature. She walked inside, turning once to wave before the door closed. The following weeks passed slowly. Arman kept his promise and visited her every week. Each time, he saw change in her. She looked healthier. Her cheeks gained color. Her hair was brushed neatly. She spoke with more confidence. Sometimes she shared small pieces of her past. Sometimes she just listened to Arman talk about life outside the shelter. She joined classes at the shelter, learning sewing, basic computer use, and simple English reading. Arman always encouraged her, telling her she was stronger than she believed. She would blush slightly and nod, like she was slowly learning to accept good words about herself. One day, she showed him a small cloth she had stitched in class. The thread formed a simple flower, not perfect, but delicate. She held it with pride, her smile wider than before. "For you," she said, shy but happy. "It's not much, but I wanted to make something." Arman took it with care, as if it were something precious. "It's perfect," he said, and he meant it. She looked pleased, her eyes shining a little. As months passed, Hania became braver. She walked around the shelter grounds without fear. She talked more with the other women. She laughed sometimes, small, innocent laughs that made Arman quietly grateful. He never pushed her, never tried to control her decisions. He simply stayed close like a steady light. The investigation also moved forward. The authorities found the people responsible for leaving her in such a terrible situation, and they began legal action. Hania was scared at first, but Arman and the shelter workers supported her through every meeting. She learned that she was not alone anymore. One afternoon, the shelter allowed Hania to work part-time in a small craft shop nearby. She learned to organize items, greet customers, and use a simple billing machine. She felt proud of herself again, something she thought she had lost forever. Arman came to see her on her first day. When she saw him at the door, her face lit up and she almost ran to him. "I did everything right," she said with excitement. "The manager said I did well." "I knew you would," Arman replied with a warm smile. You're capable of so much." Her happiness was gentle but real, and Armin felt grateful he had been there to see her rebuild her life piece by piece. As time went on, Hania began to step out into the world again. She started dreaming about the future, something she never dared to do before. She often told Arman, "You gave me a second chance to live," but he always told her the truth. "You survived because you are strong." One evening near sunset, Hania asked Arman to meet her at the shelter garden. She waited under a small tree, holding a cloth bag in her hands. When he arrived, she took a slow breath and handed him something. It was another embroidered cloth, larger this time. The stitching formed simple words. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Arman looked at it quietly, touched beyond words. Hania watched him with soft eyes. "There is something I want to say," she whispered. "For a long time I thought I had no one in this world. No family, no friend, no person who would stay. But you stood with me when I had nothing." Armin opened his mouth to speak, but she gently placed her hand on his wrist. "Let me finish," she said softly. "You didn't save me because you had to. You saved me because you cared." Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear but emotion. "Now I want to choose something for myself, my life, my path." He listened quietly, feeling his heart beat a little faster. "I want to stay close to you," she said, her eyes shining with calm determination. "Not because I need rescue. Not because I am weak, but because I trust you. I want to build a life where I feel safe, respected, and seen. And if you allow it, I want you to be part of that life." Arman let out a slow breath. There was no rush in her words, no pressure, just honesty, kindness, hope. He reached out and gently held her hand, grateful for the strength she had found inside herself. "I'll be here," he said softly, "as long as you want me to be." A small smile touched her lips. It was the smile of someone who had come out of darkness and stepped into light again. Behind them, the sky turned golden. The wind moved softly through the trees, and Hania stood tall, no longer broken, no longer afraid, free to choose her future, a future she wanted Arman to be part of. Because in the end, he had not bought her, owned her, or taken control of her life. He had simply listened to a whisper that the world ignored, and from that whisper, a new beginning had grown.